Hopefully not your junk.
God. 108.18. Okay. Notables. Where do you want to start?
The Olympics.
Okay.
The Olympics.
Sure.
Yeah, let's talk about
what a
this.
mess. The Ozempic opening ceremonies? Sorry, Olympic opening ceremonies?
These are notes I got from the Associated Press, and they were talking about an article that the opening ceremonies were very unique, and they had like a naked singer painted blue. They had a drag queen there. Menage a trois was almost shown on camera until the doors slammed shut at the tail end of yeah, there was intimate embrace between two men that danced away, hugging, holding hands. So like there's a lot of stuff going on. The LBGTQ Last Supper. We also had, I'm not sure, this kind of is flying under the radar, but the Olympic rings that are there, they're multicolored. So that's another, like, they had the beheading of Marie Antoinette, at least, I mean,
yeah, I saw that.
There's so much thing. Like I don't understand. Anyways, CBS News says the organizers behind the Paris Olympics had to apologize to anybody that was offended. Like, I get it. The Olympics, it's about being inclusive, right? Like, you don't want it to shut anybody out, and that's cool. Like, to embrace people and to make it a big party for everybody. But you know what? You don't want to have the ball sack of somebody being shown on TV, which that's what happened. Like, there was somebody's ball sack shown. Like, really, what the fuck are they trying to achieve here? In response, the International Olympic Committee even had a video removed of the opening ceremony from YouTube, and they're trying to also hide this and try to get this removed from X as well.
Their claim is that there's jurisdictional issues with posting the video. I'm not sure I buy that, but continue.
Well, I don't know. There's so much that just rubs a lot of people the wrong way, and okay, we'll leave that alone because that is what it is. But even the games themselves, the first day of the games, I can't believe I'm kind of laughing at this, but the Australian cycling team, I'm not sure if you saw this, the very first day they got there, they got robbed.
Yeah.
And their equipment, and they ended up finding it not too long after. But man, like, they even have the swim that's supposed to take place in the river. It's now, they can't take place because
second day in a row.
Yeah. Heavy rain. So they try to get rid of all the feces in it, but heavy rains have just, I guess, who knows?
They have a unified sewer system. Yeah, they have a unified sewer system over there. So when you get a lot of rain, the backflow is actually not just rainwater, but it's your piss and shit too.
Yeah,
I mean,
doing it at the beaches. It's also people just doing it in their.
If there was ever a don't get fired story, it's got to be this one, I think.
Somebody noticed, they also had a power outage across the city. Yes.
Yeah, Queen Kelly opened the chat there. Yeah, you're right.
Very true.
I mean, I'm not a particularly easy guy to offend. I don't have, these sort of pearl clutching sensitivities. I think a lot of the right-wing influencers are like, oh, this is terrible, blah, blah, blah. It's let me just say this, okay? There is a culture war going on all over the world. And one side of the culture war wants to make it so that there is just nothing that is outside of the window in terms of acceptable behavior. Whether it's, 3 ways at the Olympic opening ceremony, insulting the Last Supper, or any number of other things that were on display during that opening ceremony event, or any other behaviors in broader society, okay? Everything cannot be acceptable. This is just it's not how functioning societies work. There has to be limits on the indulgences of the flesh. And, I'm not, like I said, overly religious, Len. I'm not particularly offended by the Last Supper thing. I was raised Catholic, but I've since kind of distanced myself from the church. Although I will say I'm more spiritual now than I think I've ever been. But, you think you could make fun of Islam the same way they made fun of Catholicism during that opening ceremony, or no?
I'm probably gonna say no.
Yeah, I would say no too.
Remember when was it?
Charlie Hebdo is also happened in France, right? They learned their lesson. They learned their lesson about which religion they could offend without having a mass shooting happen, a mass murder event happen. And I think that's cowardice on the part of the organizers. Other thing I would note, I'll try and pick my words carefully here. Are they adding fans by doing this sort of thing, you think? Or are they losing fans by doing this sort of thing? What is the net, the net flow of viewers for the rest of the Olympics based on that opening ceremony?
If I'm going to guess, it's in that negative. The people that are very traditional in their lifestyle, and you could even point to people that are devout Islamists. They're not going to do it, and there's no way you're going to have a net gain from this. Like, you're just going to piss off more people. I don't understand why they would do this. It seems like there was a message they were trying to push down people's throats. For what reason? I don't know.
That's a good question. And what is the job of the opening ceremony organizers? Is the job to establish your political beliefs and share them with the world, or is it to promote the Olympics?
That's all it is. It's just
the Olympics are
a bunch of people getting together
at this point. What, 1,000, 2,000 year old tradition almost. Like, some of these games are, and so, like, are you really? Again, like, I feel I sometimes have to grapple with this idea that I'm pro clutching, but I don't think I am here. This is a tradition that's older than so many others, and we've seen over the last 10 or 15 years traditions that used to be really valued in society, sacred almost, eroded because of political interference and this inability to separate politics from culture. And these things should be separate. I don't think that's really a debatable thing. And more sports are coming to this conclusion. The NHL starting, obviously, to get away from political expression and things of this nature in their games. Baseball as well. Football, I think, will be next. At some point, you have to ask, who are you trying to appeal to, and what message should you be trying to send? And to me, it's like a traditional athletic event. Do you need the three-way? Do you need the drag queen Last Supper? What about the Olympics does that represent? Which tradition?
It should just be athletes. It should just be talking about people's accomplishments in terms of how they qualified and what they've done in terms of maybe records they're setting, personal best, world records. On top of that, on a little bit different but similar, going forward, who would want to bid on an Olympic game? Look at what's going on in whatever country you're in. I'm assuming whatever country you're in, the books aren't balanced year over year.
There's no country with balanced books at this point, right?
Would anybody want to bid on an Olympic game when you're going to have to spend a lot of money for security, for upgrading, for building new facilities? Granted, there may be some benefit in the end, because you might have to build new apartments or improve infrastructure, but you could just simply do that without bidding on the Olympic Games and you'll come out way ahead. So I'm trying to say, for this, and even stuff like FIFA, why would anybody want to support these type and put a bid in? Just don't, and spend your money wisely and other things. Why do it? And you're making it also more difficult for the residents during that period of time when the games are running. I'm sure the people in Paris have to adjust their lives now that they have a whole bunch of new people coming in. For better or for worse, they're going to have to do that. So if you have a schedule where you have to go to work, maybe they can't go to work and they have to adjust their schedule accordingly. So I'm looking at this thing it's not just the celebrating of thousands of years of games. There's a lot. It's a business, and there's a lot of greasing of palms and stuff. Yeah, I'm saying this especially with FIFA. This happened in the past. I don't know if it's still happening, but man, oh man! Look, what was it? Qatar? How did Qatar win?
Because it's crooked. The IOC is the most crooked institution on the face of the earth. It's not even close.
Yeah,
these people are the definition of backhanded briefcase exchanges. There's no one worse than these parasites, and this is the product you get. Because you stand to get rich. You why does anybody do anything? Tony Kornheiser always says, the answer to all your questions is money. And here's another example. Anyway,
this should be something that's on a ticket. If you want to go ahead with it, vote for me. And this is something I propose. If you don't like it, don't vote for me. And if people voted, then
it probably has been at the municipal level in the past, right? Or the provincial.
Has it? This is not just the municipal. This is a bigger
I,
thing.
I agree with you, but I think it's been on state tickets before. I am sure that provincial politicians have talked about Olympic bids in the past.
And that if talk about a one vote
Yeah.
issue.
Yeah.
Anyways, let's go on to California.
Sure.
And Newsom, I'm not sure if you saw this, but he's cracking down on homeless.
I love this. Isn't this so funny? What a
So yeah, this past week he issued an executive order to get rid of all homeless encampments in the state of California.
yeah.
And according to a post on X, Newsom wrote, "No more excuses. We provided the time, we provided the funds. Now it's time for locals to do their job."
Cool.
So yeah, like I understand these camps, they're eyesore, but the problem is, where do they go? They just simply can't disappear. The homeless exists, and according to the Associated Press, California has about 1/3 of all the homeless in the entire United States.
Nice.
So
That's a big chunk. That's a huge chunk.
And I guess for a number of reasons, weather being probably one of them. If you have no home, like, you know, so you have to ask, like, why are these people homeless? I guess some people can't find jobs because they don't have enough to support themselves, right? Because if you look at the cost of rent, the median household income is for somebody that is without a home is $960 a month. Rent is $1,400 a month, so they can't afford rent. So others, there's maybe some condition, either it's a physical or a mental condition, something that's just preventing them from getting a job and making ends meet. There's even probably a small number of people out there that may be lazy. I think they make up a small percentage of all homeless, but that's just my opinion. Could be wrong, but I don't think that they're very measurable. Either way, there's a lot of people just because of circumstances they can't get a job and now they're homeless, and that's just too bad. But
yeah,
as for removing the camps, the state said they're gonna what they give reasonable, I'm using air quotes here, notice to the homeless and offer to connect them to local services and help store their belongings for at least 60 days. If you're homeless, what sort of belongings do you have to store?
Buddy, you seen the shopping carts some of these guys have? They're accumulating.
And I feel bad for, like, that's their livelihood. It's all stuck in that little cart.
Right.
And it's going to require a huge coordinated effort to solve this problem. It's not just simply sweeping this shit under the rug. It's, you got to do something, go to the source, try to fix it. Look, I guess it's an election year and they want to improve things. They had Xi there earlier this year and they probably saw the results from that. And they want to try to copy that everywhere. But really, like, what the fuck are you gonna do with these homeless? They gotta go somewhere.
Put them in the woods.
They gotta do something.
Put them away. What they want is these homeless people away from cameras, right? That's my guess. They want them in shelters. They want them in, heavily wooded areas. They want them out of the state. They want them whatever. We will see where they end up. California, one of many locales, as you mentioned earlier, it does not have balanced books, does not have money to support all these homeless people. So what are they going to do? There's a long standing debate between, I think, addiction pragmatists and addiction sympathizers about whether or not you should be able to force treatment on publicly addicted individuals. And California seems to be going down this road where they're going to force treatment. If you're telling a homeless person you're going to quote unquote connect them with the services they need, while also telling them they cannot go back to being on the street, what are you really doing? That's forced treatment, right? Now, I personally am not for forced treatment, but you have to criminalize public consumption of like serious narcotics that, is a risk to the public good. And to me, that's not the same as forced treatment. So let's see what Newsom does and what the state does. You and me have talked about California a bunch over the years. And it seems to me like over the time we've been doing the show, things have gotten progressively worse there, right? This might be the first time where you've seen a story from California where you think this is a good idea to get these people off the street. So I got to give them some credit. The question is, like I said earlier, where are they going to go? And, as you mentioned, there's no way to get rid of them. So they have to go somewhere. Let's see what happens. We can only sit back and watch and wait for next week on Canadian California podcast.
You got to go to the root. They're homeless for the most part. I'm going to say here. I'm sorry if I'm painting everybody with the same brush, but they probably just don't have the ability to make enough. So they have to somehow earn money and continually earn money. And so that could they can pay for rent or eventually buy a home and then pay for food, and that gets them off the street. But how do you get there? How do we train people, or how do we help people that just don't have the ability because of physical or mental conditions or even substance abuse? Like, I don't know, man.
That's getting harder and harder.
And it gets worse and worse because the price of shit goes up, and it gets harder to maintain just a bare minimum. And that's because money has been devalued and continues to get devalued. And this is not something that's just a recent phenomenon. 2% inflation, which they're trying to achieve, is still devaluing money, just albeit at a slower pace. So let's go to North. Let's go to Canada.
Can we talk about the monetary policy report?
We can. We will. The floor is yours.
Okay. So I was saying to Len before the show, I think I might start doing a video on these reports every month because number one, I want to learn. And number two, there's a lot of stuff in here that is meaningful for Bitcoiners and Canadians broadly. I said to Len before we went to the air that to me, the tone of this report is the tone of a group of people who are tired of being right and pretending they are not. And it's a group that I think understands there's a potential that they have a different master come next fall. So let's dive into this a little bit. So this monetary policy report is about 25 pages long. There's an executive summary, among other things here. And, reading something like this can be a little bit intimidating if you've never done it before, or if you don't, have a podcast where you're talking about this stuff all the time. But I think people who listen to and watch this show probably also listen to and watch other shows that cover similar content, maybe not specifically Canadian, but you've heard enough of these terms and understand enough of these systems to know that the Bank of Canada, for all its flaws, is starting to stop pulling punches when it comes to its criticisms of economic policy and other things that are going on in the country. So a handful of things here. The outlook for Canada, not great. I will tell you that we are in kind of this slow decline when it comes to all the G7 nations. I'm kind of just picking through my my bookmarks here. So what you see, this is really terrible because, we've sort of been told this story about immigration, for example, okay? And we've been critical of that story for a long time on this show because we can see in our day-to-day lives and we can see in the data that immigration as a economic policy has failed. The experiment has been run. It has failed. I don't know if you could say the same about other countries. I suspect probably you could, but I want to take a quote here from the Bank of Canada Monetary Policy Report. This is under the housing section. The increase in housing demand from newcomers is being felt across all types of housing, but the largest initial impact tends to be in rental markets. This is because most newcomers start out as renters. Growth, that's chart 3C. Growth in the housing supply has not kept up with the strong increase in demand, with construction activity remaining close to pre-pandemic levels. We've been bringing in 1 million people a year since 2020, and we're at pre-pandemic levels of home building. That's one problem. The other problem with the immigration policy that I think is really going underreported, but is what was pointed out by Rich Diaz, friend of the show, among others. I'm going to just draw on his tweet here because he's got the chart. This is chart 3B. And actually, I want to share this with people who are on video because this is important. And it's important for a couple of reasons, but mostly because there's an issue, I think, with the way we discuss immigrants, employment, and potential. And specifically as it relates to demographics, there's a clear divide in what we can expect from an immigrant population coming into the country. So let's have a look at this. For people who are on audio, I'll read this out. This is the chart, a chart in the report. It's titled, "Newcomers are more likely than others to be unemployed across all working age groups." This is unemployment rate 2024 Q2 average, seasonally adjusted, quarterly data. Here's the problem, okay? This is Canadian born 15 to 24. You have about a Canadian born 15 to 24 unemployed. It's about 13%. Canadian born long-term immigrants, been here more than 5 years, is 15%. And Canadian unemployed newcomers is 17%. Significantly higher, okay? So you're talking about, 10, 15% increase over the Canadian born. Then things get really interesting in the 25 to 54 category. Canadian born unemployment, just a little shy of 5%. Long-term immigrants been here more than 5 years, 6%, 6.5%. Newcomers, close to 10% are not working within the first 5 years they get here. Now, if you think that's bad, let's go to the 55 plus. Now, don't forget, there's policies here that are being changed and molded over the last little while. You saw our immigration minister talk recently about caregivers being able to come over with PRs. So caregivers are often, children of parents. And so you're getting entire families coming over here, which includes a lot of people who are seniors. Now, I'm not knocking seniors for wanting to come here. I would want to come here too if it was a free ride. But the fact of the matter is we can't sustain a free ride. It's actually made more severe by the data. Canadian-born, unemployed, 55 plus, 4%. Long-term immigrants, 4%. Newcomers, 15%. So you have a huge gap in what you can expect to see in terms of the differences between people who are working and people who are not working. The other problem is that you're seeing like all these 55 plus people coming over and not working. Do you expect the 55 plus crowd to get a job when they come here, Len, at all?
No, but there's more to this than meets the eye.
Go ahead.
So one group of people that are coming here is like if you look at from countries that are immigrating to Canada, India is one of the more populated countries. India,
it's like 3 or 4 times the next closest, India.
So, and if you look at the parents and grandparents that come over from India that are 55 plus, they're coming here for the most part to take care of their children's children. So they're going to be providing, this is just the way it's done. It's just traditional in that society, which is fine. So they're not coming here to work. They're coming here to care for somebody. And what it does, it enables both of the parents of that child to go to work. That's historically how it's done.
That's the aim. Yeah. Okay.
And so that's why you're seeing a lot of them not work. So it goes a little bit further. Canada historically, if you look at the people that bring in for parents or grandparents, they tend to not bring as many comparatively to the other categories. And the reason being is they know, Canada understands that they're not going to be working in comparison to, say, somebody that's young. For example, if you bring in a young kid, like a father or mother sponsors their child to come here, it's likely that kid's going to be a productive member of society, go to school, then get a job and pay taxes and so forth. But an older person, probably not, because it's harder to get into the society that they're moving into, sometimes language barriers. So they try not to bring in that many people under those categories because they tend to be more of a burden than a long-term health, because older people need more healthcare. Older people, they tend to, they're just going to be taking services more so than adding to it. So that's why, that's what it is. That's why you're seeing them a lot in terms of numbers. Why they're not working is because they're coming here.
Yeah.
Primarily to care for their
I honestly think you're right, but I don't think it matters, because the jobs that immigrants are getting are low skill, low wage labor type jobs, Tim Hortons and whatnot, is sort of the famous meme. And so you would need 50 Tim Hortons staff to make up for 2 parents who are going to be, not only net draws, but only draws, like literally paying in $0 to the pension, to the benefits, to all the stuff that, Canada has been told this is the sort of golden goose of the modern world in terms of old age security, not in the technical sense, but sort of like lowercase old age security. And so I don't buy that. I think that's it's not your bullshit narrative, but I think it's a bullshit narrative. Because there's just no way that pouring coffees or driving Uber or, we've seen like lines crammed to the LCBO. You need so much more than just 2 working parents to care and pay the cost that the grandparents will take on the system. It's big. And to me, it's a huge net loss. It's going to cost Canadians big time over the next 30 or 40 years, big time. Population growth in the aged 15 and older crowd in 2024 will be 3.3%. That's higher than anywhere else in the world. And as we heard earlier from the bank, there's no new housing, all still pre-pandemic levels. Peter St. Ange, who's become popular on Twitter over the last year or so, wrote an article that Zero Hedge carried called Canada's Worst Decline in 40 Years. Some great charts here from the Financial Post and from the Monetary Report as well. stuff that we talked about a lot, the gap between affordability of homes and wages, the gap between nominal GDP and GDP per capita. It's a disaster. Here's another good one. The Canadian government is now paying $55.2 billion in annualized interest payments. That's more than the EI and children's benefits programs combined. Rates are at historic lows, Glenn, I think is the quote you are looking for. So all these things together, let's see if there's anything else I wanted to mention here. No, that's pretty much it from the Monetary Policy Report. I recommend you read it. It's on the Bank of Canada website. There's one every month. I was saying to Len, like I said before the show, I think I'm going to make a video on it and just go through it sort of point by point. But this is a major problem for Canadians, because as your quality of life slides, your productive class will leave. Everyone has a threshold for when they just, they don't want to take it anymore. And, you're getting closer to that for a lot of people. I don't know where it is for me. I mean, my quality of life is pretty good. I get the feeling it's the same for you, Len. But I think there's a lot of people who are 20, 21, 22. I have a friend, actually my dental hygienist. I was talking to her young son. He's a finance major, just graduated. And I saw him at football. He was playing after us. Actually, we're playing them this week. I better get stretched out if I'm playing against 21-year-olds. But he was saying that he graduated, Len, and he and like 50% of his friends are basically looking for jobs outside of the country already, because there's just no point in staying. Housing is too expensive. The wages are low, and the demand for these high skill people is high in the States. So this is another thing, right? That's not being accounted for yet. The brain drain that's not ever going to sort of make it to the Canadian, knowledge base balance sheet. These people are never going to work in Canada. They're going to come, they live here, they're born here, they're going to graduate post-secondary here, and then they're going to leave for greener pastures. That's bad. And that's another thing that's going to really contribute to this over the next 5 or 6 years, I bet. And, you saw Freeland today tweeting out the newest, latest and greatest affordability measure, that the 30-year mortgages are available for first-time home buyers today, making your monthly payments more affordable. You'll only have to pay, 25%, 30% more in interest over the extra 5 years, and sacrifice your pension as a part of your down payment for your $1 million shoebox in the sky. It's not good. And so like I said to you before, like when we talk about buying Bitcoin and holding assets and using currency as a weapon to better yourself, this is what we're talking about. The currency will continue to debase. Everything will continue to get more expensive in terms of hard assets. And the debt is ultimately just a number. If you can stomach the payments, if you can stomach the total debt that you're carrying every day or whatever, like, I don't know. I've never been a big advocate of debt. I try not to keep that much myself, but shit, it's getting harder to make that recommendation, I think. Don't you agree?
I don't even want to touch that with a 10-foot pole, because I don't want to give anybody the inkling that you should do it or not do it, whatever you think is best. But Bank of Canada is making it easier for people to maintain and take on more debt, because they lowered their interest rates this past week by another 25 basis points. And this is the second month in a row, if I recall correctly, that they've done this. And their next meeting is September.
Yeah.
So there's going to be no cut in August, unless something, I guess, out of the ordinary comes up, or no raise as well. So it's going to be like just stand pat for the next 2 months. But yeah, they're making it a little bit easier for people to deal with this. So that, coupled with the 30-year mortgages, they're each on their own is not earth-shattering, but it makes it a little bit easier for people to enter the market. But that also makes it, there's more people in the market. And so the homes that they're all bidding for theoretically should, right.
Yeah. And we have a CPI component. It's like 30%, right? Rents and shelter. I mean, these guys are in between a rock and a hard place. And the finance minister tweeting yet again that, the conditions have been laid, the ground has been laid by the policymakers du jour for these rate cuts. And I would just point out that rate cuts come when economic weakness is on the horizon. I mean, it's like you're living in like kind of bizarro land at this point. It doesn't really matter to me. I don't care. My mortgage is not bankrupting me. I don't give a shit what the rate is. Honestly, it's, nice to pay more principal, I guess. But overall, Len, rough waters for Canada, 6 months, 8 months, 10 months. When do you think we really start to see it? When are you going to start to see people, sort of in your circle mentioning that, job security is not great, whatever. I mean, you're kind of already starting to see it, I think, in a lot of ways.
Go to Poverty Finance Canada. You see
It's
so many
bad.
stories.
I never go there. I can't. It's brutal.
So it's not like when it is, but to be honest, it was probably always the case. Just now it's more noticeable, especially when you drive around. You see homeless people at intersections asking for money for cars
everywhere,
or homeless camps that are set up, and it's really sad. And there's more noticeable too, and it's not an area in the country that's immune from this. Everybody seems to have a story and seen something that's close to home.
Agreed.
It's getting back, like 30-year mortgages. It's not too long. We've had 40-year mortgages in the past. I think that it was the previous part, the other party that instituted the 40-year mortgages, and the Liberals brought it down to 25, if I recall correctly. Could be wrong. So it's not like there's appetite by either party to increase mortgages now. It seems like that's just what they want to just start handing out, or at least offering to people. 40-year mortgages might come back. It might become
that would be nuts. That'd be absolutely nuts.
When I first bought my house, that was an option, a 40-year mortgage. And man, like you think about it, it's very attractive. It's like, wow, so your monthly payment's going to be that low? Wow, so I could buy way more of a home.
You'd just be a slave for the rest of your life. But
yeah, you do the math, it's like you'll be done when you're 95. What? Like, this is just. But Japan has 100-year mortgages or something like that.
How are things going over there? Pretty sure we're in at least one group chat where every morning there's a Japan tweet. Things going sideways over there.
That's my canary in the coal mine scenario, because
Kevin Muir, by the way, big Japan guy. Maybe I'll ask him what he thinks about the latest and greatest over the pond.
That the yen has gone crazy in the past few months, and it's almost like in a week you'll see it move up or down 3 or 4%, which is insane for a quote unquote stable currency.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, these things shouldn't move that much in that short a period of time. There should be some slow movement, and that's without much intervention from the Bank of Japan. I can't believe we're talking about Japan. We should be talking about Singapore, if anything. We got to do the Singapore segment. It's been a while since we talked about the Singapore dollar.
That's Patreon content only. Do you want to do one more story?
Let's see. We might as well do one more. Scotiabank?
Sure.
Or no, we could do Scotiabank or the feces story.
What, the beach thing?
No.
Oh, okay. What's the feces story?
So
they're hucking feces at the electrical guys?
Yeah, so St. James
my
Town.
God.
This is an area of Toronto just east of Queen's Park. So it's in downtown Toronto. And there's a building within St. Jamestown complex over there that they've been throwing feces at electrical contracting teams over there. And there's a letter being distributed amongst residents in that building and just telling them, please stop harassing them and just don't throw human waste from the upper levels of the balconies at the workers below. I agree. So what they're doing, in fact, they decided to take matters in their own hands. They're hiring third-party security to protect the workers as they're trying to restore power to the building. It's not like they're doing anything wrong. They're trying to fucking restore power to the building and they're throwing shit at them. But they now have to hire security to protect them at a cost, which is going to be passed on to the building, and the building itself has to pass on those costs to the residents because they have to then now pay more in, I guess, rent or condo fees if they pay that. Either way, somehow this shit rolls downhill, and the people that are living in those
no pun intended.
Yeah, they gotta fucking pay. So stop throwing shit. It's like, come on, these guys or gals are just fucking trying to do a job. They're trying to restore power. What the fuck? This is like insane shit. It's late stage fiat.
What can you say about this? Everyone knows, like, listen, there's a significant uptick in people who seem to not be shy about shitting and using shit in public. And you get these stories from the beach. You got these contractors having poop hurled at them. Poop. That's a good place to wrap it up.
It's better that I'll say this rather than actually having somebody just lean over the ledge and just dropping a fresh one. They're at least putting it in a bag and throwing it.
What do you mean? How it probably is still fresh? Like, what do you think? They just stash it in the fridge?
But I
and
think
then
it's in a
throw it?
bag and they're throwing it in the
Oh,
like.
fuck. Who knows?
It's slightly better rather than just going straight from the anus where it's just there's
Oh my
no
God.
protection.
I don't know. God bless everyone. Thanks for
Go to
coming.
the beach and do some some analysis on what it is.
Holy fuck. Okay. Good night.
Pick a
And we'll see you Wednesday
That's the
with
beach.
UTXO.
Yeah, man. Take care and don't be a cock.